Hello, my friend. Before we get started with all of the modules, I want to talk first about why self-love is so important, and you're welcome for the sleeping puppy. All right, so first let's go ahead and talk about why self-love is so important before we get into breaking that down and really talking about how to amplify that, to work on that, right, to set that up. So first things first, self-love truly influences our perspective, how we see ourselves, how we see other people, how we see the world. It really is, it starts at home. And the thing about it influencing our perspective is that our perspective then influences our beliefs then influence our actions, and our actions then influence our reality. Talk about a domino effect. So, really, that's why it is so important, because it takes everything and it ripples out and it affects everything else. So that's why we're starting here, right? The other really important thing about self-love is it truly sets the tone for normalized behavior, right? How I treat myself is most likely going to be how I treat you. How I treat you might be how I treat myself, whether that's on a physical, mental, emotional level, those kinds of things, right? So it truly does set the tone for normalized behavior and what we deem as acceptable, unacceptable, whether we are consciously realizing that or not. The other thing is that mental illness feeds off of fear. Now, when I talk about fear, it's going to be kind of this blanket term throughout the program, okay? Fear really kind of encompasses insecurity, doubt, low self-worth, the way, again, these are the ways that you see yourself, you see life, is it optimistic, pessimistic, that kind of stuff. So fear is all of that kind of, we'll call it negativity. It's a relative term, but mental illness feeds off of fear. It needs it in order to thrive. It needs it in order to push us to the point where we're crazy anxious, or letting our moods shift from one place to the next, or feeling so depressed we can't feed ourselves or move or go for the things that we want. So that's why we're starting with self-love. That's why it's so important, because when we cultivate that within ourselves, when we build that up within ourselves, right, it really kind of helps to phase out the fear. The fear doesn't become so dominant, and therefore, one, it's proactive in keeping mental illness at bay, right? I beat bipolar anxiety and depression. The same things I'm teaching you to beat it, it's the same thing that keeps it away. So, it keeps it away, but it also beats it, because it takes out all that fear, brings in more love, all that good stuff. So when we ramp up the self-love, it's liberating. It's freeing, it's anchoring, it's grounding, right? We always have ourselves. So no matter what experience you're in, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what your environment is or the people that you're around, if you can anchor back in to self-love, I want to say you're untouchable, but that might be a bit extreme. But you know what I'm saying? When you can anchor back into yourself, it's a home base. It's a place for you to be safe, for you to be trusting, for you to be content, and that all starts with self-love. And self-love does not just happen through self-care, and that is what we're going to be diving into. Well, there is nothing else you need to do with this video. You can go ahead and move on to Module 1, and that is when we're going to start diving into the goodness. We're starting with Forgive and Face Forward. Do not let it intimidate you. I promise it's going to be really, really wonderful. So go ahead, get started.